Click the button. Clicking.
Welcome to your awakening. Please take all of your reality is adjusted.
Missed it again. Didn't click the button in time. Yet again. Click that one. Click that one. Clickety click. All the clicks. Welcome back again, folks. Greetings and well met and greetings. It is another moon day evening, the star date, 14th of the 1st, 2019. It's just gone 9 p.m. GMT, 21:03 by my computer clock anyway, so a little bit late. It seems to be a usual thing, a minute or two late starting. As I was doing my usual, I was listening to the guys chatting on Raconteurs News while we were getting the room ready and setting up and whatever. And then when I went to click the button, I didn't even have my intro thing open, ready to go. It's just terribly unprofessional. I don't know, you just can't get the stuff these days. So, yes. Anyway, thanks to Raconteurs News guys. I know I did hear Jason gave us a shout out part way through because I was trying to listen to multiple things at once. I couldn't listen all the way through till they'd finished. I could hear that he was nearly winding up with the show. That was why I typed in the chat to say thank you, good night. On the Raconteurs News chat, that is. I still haven't clicked into this chat here yet. Come on, I'm still clicking windows. Oh, blooming hell. Sorry, folks. I say hello in the chat. Well, I say evening, like I usually do. Evening. Evening. I can see you now. Hello. Hello to everyone in the chat. Paula B, hello. I did send you a message. I don't know if you got it or not. Blazing Stars, hello, mate. Dave Iron, hello. Sots is in the room, and Reality Chat is in the room, and Greer, hello. And Dean, hello, mate. And the Mighty T, the Dots, hello, Tony. Hope you're right. Lots some Tat Fro, hello. And James Owen, hello, mate. Thank you. Thanks for sharing it round like you do. Mandy, I'll just say Mandy. I know you know me, you. Hello, Mandy. And Robert Lunn, hello. A new being, hello. I'll try to remember to come back to the chat room and say hello again in a bit as people gather. And I'm sure there'll be more names in there soon enough as it goes. Because it's often usually just the early people that I end up saying hello to, and then other people join in and I miss them because I haven't seen them, that they're in the chat. So anyway, let's have a quick look, get my notes sorted. And I wonder if well, there's only a subtitle tonight. As I said in last show, I'm going to start doing it with just an episode number rather than kind of like a main title thing. And the other thing I wanted to mention tonight, I was doing my usual kind of housekeeping stuff before I carry on, but there's one other image that I meant to open just because I think it's a good way of describing what I'm about to mention, just as a fill-in, because of the fact that I've changed the way that I'm titling the shows, just putting a number on them rather than putting a title, a worded title kind of thing. Screen share, quick, click more buttons. And this is becoming an exercise in button clicking. Anyway, yeah, just as a quick explainer or reminder, because it was approximately 100 episodes or so ago when I went through the stage of trying to explain why I'd titled this particular show as Soul Excalibre and what I was trying to say with the way I was titling it, what was the kind of meaning that I meant to, or was adding into those words, titling it that way. And as I do, I ranted for hours about about my thoughts on why it's that way and what's the meanings of the words and the sentence, the phrase, the title, blah blah blah. But just to to give a sort of quicker encapsulated meaning to it for people that haven't heard the other episodes. And the reason I picked this image to show it with, because it looks a bit like a sword, doesn't it? That was the whole point. Gary found this image for me, or got it from somewhere off the internet, whatever. But I thought it was perfectly appropriate because at the time we'd been talking about chemtrails and geoengineering. And it looks a bit like a sword, so it works well for saying Sol Excalibre, because it's got the sun in there behind that eclipse. Sol is the name for the star that is our sun. That's the name that the academics gave it a long time ago. So it's Sol representing the sun. And I've deliberately used an altered version of the word Excalibur, Excalibur, the usual spelling as the noun, the name of that legendary sword that was called Excalibur. But instead I've used a spelling that is deliberately playing on the Latin root meanings of those words. Ex means without or minus, it doesn't have what he's following in the rest of the word. And Libra or Libre means of a quality or of a definition. It's that thing that defines something, and something that is of caliber was meant to be of a quality definition. It defines itself as being quality, and it is used commonly, or was, still is, I suppose, arguably in the definition, but it's used as a measure of quality. So something that is already considered of caliber would then be used as a measure for anything else similar that followed after. So you take one statue and compare it to new statues that are made and say, oh, it's not of the same caliber as this one. It's not of the same definition. But by putting those two together, I was trying to imply that without definition or without value judgment. So this is something, a star without or beyond value. You cannot put a value on it. You should not. I know, using the word should. You should not put a value on it in the same way as we do with most everything else in this physical world. We put values on things so that we can exchange them between us and all that kind of stuff. But no, the concept of the Sol Excalibur is the star without equal or star without measure. And a star is a generator of energy. Without that star, we would not be existing here on this planet. So it is the root source of energy within this locality. All other forms of energy that we produce on the planet are subdivisions of the energy that is created by that star. So yeah, hopefully that sort of makes a bit of, just as a quick encapsulation. There is more layers to that I can stick in. It also connects into the Greek symbolic and numerological symbol of phi, Phi, the symbol for phi, which is the circle with the line running through it. And it also connects to the call them principles that can be derived from that symbology. So the various layers of meanings that can be derived from that symbology, because it is the duality of the everything in the circle and the singular defined definition, quantitative, as in it's got numerical values that define it as a line. It makes it separate from the everything. You have defined something, and in doing so, it separates it from the everything else. And it is a core part of what we do as beings. We define things, we give them definition, we give them boundary lines, we give them outlines so that we can separate them from the everything else, so that we can think about them, talk about them, address them, consider them, calculate them. If you don't have a definition for A and you don't have a definition for B, you can't do an algebraic equation to say what is A plus B, because the two have no defined meaning. It's that kind of very core level philosophical, psychological stuff that we do as beings. So the energy that cannot be bounded or cannot be defined is where you begin, but from that beginning, you're moving into definition straight away. Just by considering anything beyond that all-encompassing, encapsulating everything, then you're beginning definitions. Can also be seen as that. I mentioned listening to Steve's chat on Saturday. Hello, Steve. If you're in the chat, I'll check the chat back again. Hello to the new people joining in the chat. Sorry, coughing at you a lot tonight. I'll try and get past that in a bit if I can. Looking for who's joined new since I last said hello. Gary Ord, hello, mate. And Cheris Rosin, hello. And Stewie, hello. Hello, Stewie. Super Leeds, hello, Leeds. He's Leeds super. It's super. Scrolling. Alan, Big Al, hello, mate. I'm scrolling down quick. Hopefully I'm not missing anyone. Sometimes you get that kind of blind spot as you're scrolling. Minty B, hello. Got the eels up inside you. Oh, hang on, chat room jumping as it's catching up. Gareth, hello, Gareth. And Johnny Jam Shovel, hello. Oh, I think I did say a quick hello to everyone. Yeah, Steve is in there. Hello, Steve. Yeah, I was listening to Steve's show on Saturday. I'll mention a couple of other things as well connected from that, but I just wanted to mention from in the chat. I typed into the chat at one point, there is that old phrase. I'm not sure who exactly the quote comes from originally. It comes from a kind of Eastern tradition, as far as I know, Buddhism or Hinduism, one or the other, both combined. But that phrase of, if you want to change the world, begin with yourself. And I deliberately separate the words your and self to make the point that it's not just talking about, only thinking about yourself kind of thing. It's begin with your inner world, with yourself. Who are you? What are you? What are the things that drive you? What do you aspire to? What do you dream of? What do you like? All that kind of usual good introspection knowledge, the inner work that needs to be done before you can really address the outer work. And Steve did mention some of that kind of stuff in his talk on Saturday. But in saying that, reminds me of this, as I've just been mentioning about the soul Excalibre and stuff like that. Is begin with the self. You start with that everything, and then you begin with the self. And in that beginning, there is that definition. And from that first foundational definition, you keep working your way upwards. You define more things, and that allows you to make order out of the seeming chaos of the energy of creation, because creation is happening continuously all the time. Everything is happening all at once right now. Everything. It's all happening right now. But we can define order out of that because of our ability to create that separation of that's that thing, that's that thing, that's that thing. So it's an essential part of who and what we are and how we go about this existence. So you want to change what's going on in the world, you want to change the big picture, or you want to help, you want to be involved, or you're doing it for your own personal point of view reasons, you're doing it to help yourself, whatever, by trying to alter what's going on in the rest of the world, the external world. You have to begin with yourself first. That phrase has become a useful and valuable truism because it contains helpful wisdom. You can change the world, yes. I don't believe in the fallacy that you can't change anything, you shouldn't bother trying, blah, blah, blah. I ranted about that last week. But if you want to try and change the world, you'll help yourself, and in doing so, you'll help more other people. You'll help the external more, you'll be more successful at helping the external if you begin from yourself and work outwards from there. But that's the point. It begins with the self. It doesn't end with the self. Contained within that quote is, that wisdom. It begins with the self. It doesn't say start and end with just yourself. The quote doesn't say if you want to change the world, don't bother, just change yourself. It says begin with the self. So, yeah, mentioning that just while I was talking about the Sol Excalibre kind of stuff, because I thought it's worth mentioning that in this new year, as I haven't mentioned it for however long, just to hopefully a quicker, shorter explanation of what it's supposed to represent, what it's supposed to mean, etc. In case people look at the title of the show and think, oh, what's that? That doesn't really make a lot of sense because it's not even the correct English spelling and stuff like that. Yeah, this guy talks about language and he doesn't know how to spell Excalibur. It took me a while to realise I got the E and the R the wrong way around at the end as well, but there you go. Huxley Pig pointed that out for me ages ago. Thank you, Huxley. Anyway, yes, to mention other stuff I was going to rant about in that kind of networking sense. I don't know if Roberto's in the chat, but I was going to say thanks to Roberto for posting his lyrical musings. He puts them into a kind of rap, lyrical rhyme. He posted a comment under last week's feed, and I sort of tried to reply to it in a lyrical fashion. And I did a little sentence using some rhyming to sort of, reply. Well, not so much reply, but just a comment on what he said. And he replied again with more rhyming couplets. And I just thought, now I'm sat here trying to think of, am I in a rap battle now? Do I have to respond in like rhyming? And then all that got stuck in my head was rap battle and my fat skull. So I thought, no, I'll leave it. But thanks anyway. So that's using creativity to still get the information across. Sharing seeds of information, sharing seeds of knowledge and wisdom. And he's putting them into a rhyming lyrical style that, is similar to modern, what people call rap. There's one of those definitions. But it's using the English language in a way that it creates that pentameter. So it feels that it has a rhythm. And music is something that is intrinsic to everything. Think in terms of frequency. As other great minds have said in the past, again referencing Steve's show, Standing on the Shoulder of Giants, as other great minds have said in the past, think in terms of frequency, and music is frequency, vibration, that we can sense most of the time, but sometimes you can't actually hear it. It's not audible, but you still sense it in your self. So it doesn't necessarily have to be heard by the ears. And music is not necessarily just instruments playing or, vocals singing. Music is, how do I say it without getting too poetic, and musical. Musical is part of music is part of existence. It feeds the soul in a way of saying, a cheesy, cliched way of saying it. But Steve also mentioned about me sort of doing a lot of stuff in this environment. Put it this way, it made me think that, as he was describing it, I felt a little bit like it makes me sound like I'm a hub of a network, which in a way, in some ways, that's true, as any channel on the YouTube and anybody who does anything in a regular fashion on the internet, you are acting as a network hub. But, I'm grateful what he said. Thanks for what you were saying, Steve. But I just sort of wanted to, I suppose, be a little bit self-deprecating of saying, look, all I'm doing is I do my channel, I do my thing, and I'm happy. I like to interact with other people doing similar stuff. And if that includes like inviting them to come and chat with us, or they invite us to go and chat with them, and I'm saying that in the sense of, it might not necessarily be me personally, but it might be one of the other people that participates in these these broadcasts or these group activities. I'm grateful and I'm happy about that. Yeah, and that's what I've been participating in. Yeah, that as well connects into some of the stuff talking about last week. My intention was never to create a group. As far as I'm concerned, there is no group. There is no membership. You don't have to buy a membership card. You don't have to join up to anything. The only thing you're doing is participating in an environment where people gather together. So therefore, by default, it's a group. It doesn't mean you're forced to do one thing or the other. You can come and go as you please. People come and go as they want to. They participate as they choose to. No demands are made and nobody's forced to take part in anything that they're not interested in or don't want to. Yeah? But I think it's worth saying that, because in this internet environment, YouTube in particular has got its own sort of style to this. But a lot of the situation is exacerbated or made worse. It's made problematic because there is this expectation of people having to join into some kind of grouping or tribal connection of some kind. In effect, they feel, or many people feel, that they have to join up to something, almost as though they're joining some kind of institution. So in the same way that you go and join a club somewhere, you know, for a lot of people, I over the years have got the impression that they come with that baggage, whether it's consciously or not. They might not be consciously thinking, oh yeah, I'm looking for a group that covers this kind of topic that I want to join, so that I have a little, you know, hobby group that I do that thing with. Some people are doing it consciously in that kind of fashion. They might be looking for a group of preppers that, you know, they want to join in doing that kind of stuff with. But I think a lot of people do it subconsciously because they're bringing baggage with them from the system, where you are expected to sort of put both feet in and say, yes, I am part of this group, whether you say it directly or not. You know, you put the banner on, you put the uniform on, you fly a particular flag that says I am part of this group, or you wear a particular color, or, you know, you say I'm right wing, I'm left wing, you know, joining that kind of group. And that's not what I've intended to do with what I'm doing here on the internet. And I don't think it's what is actually happening with the people who tend to gravitate around this part of YouTube. Yeah. There's other broadcasts, other shows, like I mentioned, Raconteur's news shows, Steve's show, and there's a lot of other shows out there that are doing similar things that are not part of any multi-channel network, and they're not some kind of club that you have to join. They're people doing their things. Sometimes it is little groups of people that work together and put their output on a single channel or a single web page, but it's not just an individual, it's a little group of people working together, working collectively. But to me, this is a natural and organic thing that has occurred, that people looking for similar things and having similar questions or similar desires, similar directions that they're following, have all gravitated around this area. And to me, that's immensely beneficial. And from what Steve was saying, it did make me wonder, like, maybe that aspect of it needs addressing more, because there is this conception, maybe misconception in many ways, but that you have to somehow sublimate yourself into this group. And to me, that's not what it is, and that isn't what you should be doing. Again, you know, you're not really helping yourself if you do that. Doesn't mean I'm suggesting that you go and join in with the growing demographic of people who are just deliberately being opposers for one reason or another. For a lot of them, it's purely financial. They've looked at the market, the business model for YouTube, and they figured out that by courting controversy or deliberately creating drama, they can output content on a constant basis that brings in a steady income stream. So, you know, YouTube has, I know they've done, I feel anyway, they've done this deliberately in many ways, but it shot itself in the foot absolutely once it switched gears to a more monetized environment where it pays to be an arsehole, basically. You want to get clicks and you want to get views and you want to get monetizing money out of YouTube, just be a troll. You can troll people online and you can create content easily and you'll keep the money coming in. So, yeah, there's a lot of that kind of shit. And for them, for those kind of people, it works better when they do things in groups, because you get that kind of mob attacking and you get the mob mentality of groupthink. You know, the more numbers that join a group, the lower the IQ number goes. It's almost like inverse correlation. You know, more numbers join, the lower the IQ of the group mind goes. So you can get a big bunch of people to just be an army of arseholes online, and then you can direct them to create influence. I don't see that happening from this side of the fence, as it were, because I don't do that kind of shit. I ain't interested in that kind of shit. I'm not going to participate in that kind of shit. I'm not going to put energy into it. And from this side of that fence, to me, I do not see that is what is happening around here. You know, to my knowledge anyway, unless they're doing things in secret, you know, as can happen, there is not a group of people in this environment that are all deliberately trying to fuck with the normies. You know, we're not attacking the normals and going, oh, you're all fucking normal, you're all sheep, you're all this, and trolling them and harassing them. If you've got the truth, you don't need to do that shit. The truth does not need you to use underhanded tactics to force it into people's heads. You know, if anything, that's the worst thing you can do, because then people still feel tricked and they end up not really doing their own inner work because they've just switched authority figure. And instead of, you know, listening to the state, they're now listening to whoever is the guru face on the screen that's giving them this, the new version, the new perception of reality. And in a way, that's a good way to mention there is a vote tomorrow in Parliament here in the UK. Theresa May is having another vote on her deal, and we'll see what happens from there. I just wanted to mention it in that way because it sort of represents that kind of illusion element that, you know, I'm trying to point out. I do not believe that illusion insistence that the vast majority of people in this environment are somehow nefarious or have malicious intent and are seeking to actively troll or fuck with everyone else. I do not believe that everyone on the internet is a cunt. You know, it's one phrase that I've heard, the way I've heard it put across before more than once. And it's sort of, when you say shit like that kind of absolutist claim, you're basically calling yourself a cunt at the same time. So if you're on the internet projecting out to the public saying everyone on the internet is a cunt, it's like you're calling yourself a cunt, as well as me, as well as everybody else here. And I know for a fact that the people around here are not that way inclined to that kind of fallacious thinking or misguided thinking, however you want to call it, and where it might be coming from or growing out of. It doesn't help in the long run. You're not really helping people. You're not helping yourself. You're not progressing yourself. You're not doing your own inner work. You're just projecting outwards. You're projecting negativity and destructive mentality, and you're putting it into other people. You know, so you are in effect polluting their thinking by putting out that kind of rhetoric or that kind of attitude. And, you know, to me, that's that illusion element again. Why I mentioned the Theresa May vote thing. Yeah. We shall see. I'm sure we'll talk about it again on Wednesday night on Reality Chat. Anyway, the other thing I wanted to mention, the yellow vests. I feel it's got to be mentioned because, you know, I'm sure many people, certainly the people who come and listen to these shows, are probably very well aware of all that kind of stuff to do with what's going on at the moment with the yellow vests. as in, there's stuff going on. I don't necessarily mean that you know all the ins and outs, you know whether it's good or bad or whatever. I listened to Annie Logical's video that she put up earlier today, I think. It was either last night or today. And I listened to, and this sort of brings me to the main thing I wanted to rant about, and hopefully I can try and explain why the subtitle in the info box is what it is, because it probably makes no sense to anyone at the moment. And I'm just giggling at myself and my deliberate giving people something to think about. They're like, what? Well, Moby Dick and a whale? What's he on about? But yeah, talking about yellow vest stuff happening. And it very much makes me think about the movie Children of Men, which I've ranted about a few times in the past. And we're now getting to that stage where the propaganda is presenting you this imagery of desperate immigrants trying to get across the channel. I say desperate immigrants, working age males primarily, trying to get across the English Channel in little boats in what are in effect, dinghies, inflatable craft, or maybe rigid bottoms, but they're inflatable dinghies. And there's a lot of similarities to the way the storyline is presented in that movie, Children of Men. And it brought me to that imagery, the concept of the single European state. And again, I know we talked about this a lot recently, that potentiality that a lot of what is going on is because they want to initiate that kind of conflict in each nation state within Europe, so that it gives them the justification to push forward with that unification of a single European superstate. The background imagery in the movie and the sort of background details that are given away in the script of the plot line give you an idea of that level of, there are walls, there are these definitions of movement between different areas. You have to go through this processing, and you have to be a citizen, and the conflict lines where those walls are getting bigger and bigger, and the whole thing, the system is creaking at the seams, ready to fall apart. Seems very much like a lot of what's going on at the moment. And in that, there's a lot of justified anger. Many people are fed up and sick and tired of what's going on, the way their nation states, like I said, it's all across Europe, the way their nation states are being treated or being degraded. Their standard of living is going down. Their reliance on the availability of certain products or services is disappearing. Like here in the UK, like the NHS being crippled and things like that. More and more people on benefits, more and more people on the poverty line or below. There's a lot of genuine righteous anger bubbling away that is perfectly suited for any spark to set it off. And that seems to be a lot of what they're trying to do. So I mentioned Annie Logical. Please go and check out her work as well if you're interested in looking into the information connected into the background behind the media imagery, the propaganda about the protests and what the yellow vests are supposed to represent and things like that. But at the same time, this brings me to, I also listened to the uploads that Ian R. Crane did on his channel today. He's over the last year or so, he's been in this habit of doing these little live broadcasts where he gives a sort of roundup about the information about the fracking situation here in the UK. And he's been doing that fairly consistently for quite a while now. And it's something I got into the habit of watching, not a unthinking habit, deliberately watched it. By conscious choice. I would tune in to watch it so I could keep up with some of the stuff that's happening around that fracking issue. And I mention it now. I'm not caveating myself, but I'm mentioning this now because I feel this is a beginning point where for a lot of people they'll begin a shutdown, or they'll begin a conflict in their thinking because of who it is I'm talking about. Ian R. Crane, has somewhat of a reputation, and you either accept him as being what he presents himself as here to help the people, I'm just going around doing my thing so that I can help the people, or you see him more as what I call a marketeer, which is somebody who utilizes what he's doing to generate an income for himself, a living. So he deliberately does things that benefits that business model. He's not going to do things that potentially would harm that business model. And he sees many subjects and topics and situations happening in the world as being a resource for his business model. So, that is part of the consideration. That shouldn't automatically, immediately swing you one way or the other. Just keep that as part of the consideration. So, listening to what he was putting up today, and he put up a little video about weaponized vocabulary, which I thought fair enough. That is a lot of what's happening with the propaganda environment at the moment, and the system is very well practiced and competent at doing that kind of stuff. That is a lot of what we've talked about, what I've talked about here on this show in particular, is that use of language, manipulation of meaning and perception via that kind of means of propaganda, symbolism, etc. So I thought, okay, fair enough. And then his next videos were where he was talking to Mark Steele, who's been a name that probably most people who are listening have heard him mention. The Raconteurs News guys have mentioned him a fair bit recently as well. They've had some encounters with him and his helpers, put it that way. So yeah, Ian R. Crane's talking to Mark Steele, because Mark Steele today was at the court where he's having to present himself. He said he was supposedly going in to give a defense or to give a 4-hour presentation or something. But the fact that Ian put up 2 videos within an hour of each other meant that he obviously weren't allowed to have his 4 hours worth of talking. But the main point to mention it is I'm not disputing the details of the information that he talks about 5G. Mark Steele mentioned quite a bit of information about 5G and also the LED lighting. And that's stuff that I'm not disputing. And I'm not really disputing the thing as a whole. I'm just trying to point out some things that stand out to me that may be indicative of connections into the yellow vest situation as one part, but also that whole environment of them trying to encourage the anger in people such that they'll end up creating a violent revolution that serves the system. So questioning and listening to what was being said, and Ian R. Crane to me was a bit of an aside, because he was just doing that job of, there's this guy who from my marketplace is a resource, so I present him and I add some of my own stuff to sort of fill it out and give it some body, some oomph, so it carries across to the audience better. And there are some elements of good information in there. There is a lot of truth that they are sharing. And that's, again, that please don't throw everything out. Don't throw the baby out with the bathwater just because somebody earns a living by doing this, conspiracy genre kind of stuff. Doesn't mean you just ignore everything that they're saying. There's tripping people up constantly in this environment is that demand for some kind of idealistic perfection of the truth giver. Even putting aside the concept of all you're doing is just looking at another authority and accepting another authority. Stop it. Anyway, before I digress too much, so he talks about various elements of the technology, which is fair enough. But 2 things that stood out to me. One was some of the things he actually said, some of the rhetoric and the language he used, the way he said things, and that linked into the other elements that they didn't really question while they were talking between them, and hasn't really been questioned in any way at all over the whole situation. And that question is, why are they trying to take this to court? Why are they trying to push this through a judicial system where there is this expectation that said judicial system will rule in their favor and cause all this 5G to stop happening? He sort of says this in his rhetoric a couple of times at least, where he's saying, like, I'm using democracy, I'm appealing to the democracy of this country. And he's bigging it up, basically. He's democracy is great, and I'm using democracy to solve this problem. And as I say, it's all based on this foundation of this expectation of the judicial system being utilized to work against the 5G rollout, the agenda of the 5G rollout. And I find that highly problematic. I find that highly problematic for a few reasons. Hopefully, the core of those reasons will be pretty obvious to most people listening to this, if not all of you, I would hope. Expecting the system to change itself because you wave at it and say, hey, I've got the truth, you got to stop doing what you're doing, it ain't going to happen. Even if you present something that's completely true and accurate and blah, 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 the system will just move the goalposts, or it will shuffle itself in such a way that you'll get bogged down in bureaucracy and red tape, and your court dates will take years and years and years and years. And before you know it, several years have gone past, and the shit that you were trying to prevent happening has already happened anyway. So, oh, well, at least you've kept a lot of lawyers in employment. You bought them all a yacht each with the amount of money you chugged through that judicial system. And that brings me to the questionable element of this. Just looks like some kind of deliberate attempt to appropriate this outrage against the technology that is being forced upon the populace without proper testing, even though testing has been done, but without official sanctioned testing and all that kind of expectation that should usually happen with anything like this being rolled out on the public. But no, instead it's been appropriated and then driven straight into the judicial system, where, as I say, the judicial system will happily just go, yeah, can you see where the P is? She'll lift the cup up, show you where the P is. Are you watching the P? Are you watching the P? Are you watching the P? Oh, you lost. Tied up and steam valved, and all that energy that people have for trying to deal with the problem of the 5G rollout and the potential dangers of that technology being made ubiquitous across society. Various dangers, not just the physiological health dangers that are there, but also the way it will change the infrastructure of society such that it will radically alter the way we live, and radically in a way that would, for most people, not be a world that they want to live in, unless they really love being in the delusion of the Matrix circus game. Then they might think it's fantastic, like an episode of Black Mirror. Oh, everybody liked my post today. All that kind of social media credit environment of delusion. But it does, just in those two little videos, which amounted a total of probably about 40 minutes worth of live coverage that Ian Arkwright did, and just listening to that 40 minutes or so of rhetoric from the two of them, I thought, okay, yeah, the information about the 5G, the LED lights, etc., yeah, fair enough. But you're going to a court. You are, in effect, going to the system and asking the system to stop itself from doing something. That's like asking your own cells to stop producing skin. Please, cells in my body, stop producing skin. Yeah. Leave aside the questions of powers of the mind for now. But then that left me thinking about the concept of, well, thinking about the concept of it. Just in my head, I get these little kind of imagery versions of something, of a thought, before I start pulling it apart and turning it into those definitions. My mind tends to think more in imagery than it does in strings of words. I think most people do, really, when they think about it. Think about thinking. I'll see you in 10 years. But in my head, I got this imagery of Moby Dick, and the whale breaching the surface, and them all going, "Oh, there it is! There she blows! We found it!" And I know that might sound a weird connection, but as I had that imagery and I was considering, why am I thinking about that? What is it that I'm thinking here? Questioning my own thinking and where it's coming from. But I feel it was that element of, like, when you pick up the book Moby Dick, you probably got a good idea that it's about this guy who goes off hunting this mythical whale. And it's a really big book. You got to be quite a determined reader to get all the way through Moby Dick, or really enjoy reading. But it's quite a big book. It takes quite a bit of effort to read your way through it, and it takes most of the book. You have to work your way through most of the book before you get to that actual point of encountering the whale. And it's a little bit like, somebody picking up a book, the Moby Dick book, thinking, I'm going to read this. It's something about a whale, isn't it? Okay, I'll read it. Months later, reading. I found the whale. It's what? Yeah, it's a book about a guy looking for a whale. So, of course, there's a whale in it somewhere, because it's a book about a guy looking for a whale. And I know it's just another way of stating the obvious. But it felt very much what I was listening to, their rhetoric of, this is like stating the obvious of, like, hey, everybody, 5G this, 5G that, 5G this. Let's go to the court and ask that they stop it. Right? Your judicial system, and I know there can be arguments made about different kinds of judicial system, who's got culpability for which part of the supposed offence or problem. Is it a civil case, a criminal case? All these kind of nuances of differentiation when you just say judicial system. But really what he's talking about is approaching the system through its normal fascia. Its normal fascia with the people is that there is this court system where you can go and sue somebody for doing something wrong, or you can appeal for clemency against your alleged crimes, appealing to the system. That's there, and it's obviously there. Everybody, it's a given that within our society there is this structure there, and that's how our world works at the moment. So taking this concept and all the information to do with it about the 5G and the LED lighting and the techno rollout agendas that are going on, and saying, hey, everybody, look, here's all this stuff, and we're going to go and find the whale. So let's go to where the whale is. So isn't it obvious to you that all you're going to do is go in, and it'll be like a spinning door, and you'll come out the other end, and it'll make no change. It'll make no difference. And I know that the case he was there for today was about him being gagged, or their attempt to try and gag him from, putting out his information or speaking out about 5G and whatever. But that's just the beginning of this, where in effect he's been given kudos. He's been painted as being a hero of the people, being presented as a hero for the people. And I think that's why they've chosen that particular situation in Gateshead. And maybe, possibly, and I am just speculating, why it happens to be him that fits the bill to serve that role. Because of his background and because of his knowledge, he can present a very good argument with, like I say, a lot of information about the technology and the agendas and stuff like that. But his supposed solution to it is to take it into a court environment, a judicial environment, where he will use the court system to pressure the council house to do this, that, or the other. I'm quite happy to say, yes, I'm being cynical and I'm being highly dubious about what's going on. And I don't want that cynicism to stagnate anything that's actually potentially going to help the situation. So I'm not trying to insist that people don't take part, don't do anything, just be apathetic and do nothing. Not at all. But I also want people to be aware so that they don't get fooled into adding energy into something that in the bigger picture will just serve the purpose of the agenda that you're actually trying to work against. I really don't believe or do not accept, it does not logically add up for me, that going to the system and appealing to the system is going to make it change what it's doing. If that were true, it would have happened many times in the past. And I'm talking about the bigger picture things going on here, not just somebody making one successful appeal against their fraudulent mortgage or something like that. No, this has got to be happening on the bigger scale en masse, or be addressing a core part of the structure that affects, by trickle down, affects everything else that's going on in society. And that doesn't happen. It might have happened occasionally through history where there's been some major changes occur. But just like the revolutions, they go through a circle where what might have been a successful or a success in changing something eventually gets twisted round and polluted and corrupted back into where you were in the first place before you tried addressing it. So yeah, I'm quite happy to say, I'm being cynical. I do not trust that situation. To me, it looks more like what they're trying to do is appropriate the energy that is against 5G and crash it into that brick wall that is the system's face of bureaucracy that is mostly represented by the judicial system. Because that's what people think of when they think of, oh, the system's doing wrong to us, we need to get it to sort out this problem. They go via the judicial system or they go via the council system. You know, they might appeal to their council, go to council meetings and stuff like that. But at some point, it meets the judicial process where a judge or somebody has to give a proclamation of some kind to say, this is what's going to happen. The council must do this or the government must do that. I really don't think that that's a way to address this 5G question, the potential problems. But at the same time, finding the whale or just stating the obvious of like, that looks like some kind of steam valve or something. It's just becoming, it's been blown out of proportion to such a degree that it's becoming unbelievable. There's a lot of holes in it that just don't add up for me, that don't make any sense unless it's meant to be a controlled opposition diversion to capture people's energy and steam valve it or misdirect it so that it crashes the whole protest. Yeah, using the system against the system. And that kind of dissonance of thinking that Days used to say this quite often because it's a good way of representing the principle of the argument. Yeah? It's like trying to write a letter to your rapist to ask them to stop raping you. I know that's a very coarse and base example to use, but it hits home because that's the principle of what is going on here. If you go to the system and say, hey, system, please stop killing us, the system is not going to register that in a way that will make it change what it's doing. I don't think so. Not the way the system is now, no way. Maybe in some manner, I'm optimistic enough to think maybe in some manner it could be a slightly different shape, such as that kind of problem isn't allowed to perpetuate. But the way it is at the moment, most definitely, they'll just move those goalposts. They'll shuffle them in some fashion so that the agenda will continue and your protests against it will just fall on deaf ears, in effect. or you'll get pushed into a category where you are a quantifiable loss in a similar fashion to vaccine court. You know, if vaccines are supposedly so perfect and don't cause any injury whatsoever, why is there a system of paying compensation to people who successfully petition for vaccine injury? In other words, they petition and can prove that what has happened to them or their child was because of the effects of the vaccines. They get compensation. It's hardly ever mentioned. It doesn't make the mainstream news. But it's there. It's a reality that happens, that occurs within our society. Yeah, they will see you as being a quantifiable loss. You'll be acceptable losses, collateral damage. And that could be either in a financial sense, of they'll just pay you off to shut you up. You know, maybe they'll pay for you to move somewhere else, or they'll offer you a home somewhere else, or, you know, whatever. Or they'll just see you as, you know, affordable losses for their society. So what if, you know, an extra 10% of you die off due to health problems? Yeah, it's acceptable losses. We'll just ship in an extra 10% immigrants to replace you as workers and breeding stock. You've got to, this is my approach to it anyway. You know, you do as you choose to do, but I speak in a way that, you know, I feel hopefully gets the point across. I find it helpful to think from the point of view of mechanistic systems. Don't put any emotion into it. It's numbers on a page. If you can perceive the equations in that way, even though it's horrible, it's dehumanizing, it's psychopathic, but that is what the system does. And the system is operated by people, so you can appeal to the people. But when it comes to the mechanisms, the bureaucracy of how the system chugs things around, it doesn't think in a humanistic sense or in the sense of a living being. It's a mechanism for moving resources around. So you've got to think from that mechanistic point of view of you are just numbers on a page. If they calculate that their society will still be okay, we'll be able to still do what our governors want us to do, even though we lose this extra percentage of the population, or this extra percentage of the population becomes sickly and unhealthy. We'll do it. It's just business. It's just numbers. As long as the ledger book balances out, they don't consider the amount of people that actually die or suffer in some manner. They're not concerned with those kind of emotional contents or elements. But that, I say, if you listen to those videos, I click like on them. This is another one of those things that I have to say every so often. You know, it's not a caveat, but it's just to try and help people comprehend beyond the baggage. You know, sometimes I click like on something not because I like it or agree with it. It's because the content of it I think are worth your time. So whatever is in the video, they might be saying things that I don't agree with, but I think the information or the way they're presenting it, there's something about it that is potentially valuable or useful for people. And to me, what was valuable in those two broadcasts, you know, what he put up on his channel, Enoch Crane, what he put up on his channel about weaponized vocabulary, I thought, yeah, okay, that's, to me, that's got value that people can get something from, and it's there for free. You don't have to pay him anything to listen to that. So I click like on that. But the other two videos, I'm clicking like on that as well, because I want other people to notice that, you know, have a listen to what he's saying. I like a lot of the stuff that he's bringing forward. I like the information that he's presenting to the public. He's sharing a lot of good information, but he's got these other elements in it. There's like, hopefully the audience is getting the idea now of, you know, they're thinking for themselves. They can look at all the information and go, yeah, I like that section. That's bunkum. No, I don't think that'll work, but I appreciate what you say in that bit. Look at the information rather than just the icon or the figurehead that is presented to you to pass on that information, even if they might be, you know, saying it in exactly a way that you really like and enjoy. Hopefully a lot of this stuff now is becoming more obvious to people. More and more people are realizing they don't need to read the whole book about Moby Dick because they already know there's a whale in there. So, you know, it's a book about a guy looking for a whale, and he obviously takes a long time to do it because the book's that thick. I know the book really is a lot deeper than that, and there's a lot of really good stuff in that story, but you know, using it as that kind of simplified example. Yeah, democracy in his rhetoric, the way he mentions democracy. This was something as well that happened around the fracking protests when they first began. A lot of those protests were, or they're politicized. Some of the political groups tried to appropriate the energy of the people protesting against the fracking and turn it into a political, ideological message. So you had a few politicians turning up in the protests and getting themselves arrested, you know, that kind of shit. So this is nothing new. It's not going to, you know, it's not unique to this situation. This happens repeatedly. Sometimes the reasonings or the agendas of the people who do this stuff is not necessarily from malicious intent or directly malicious intent against the audience. Sometimes it's just financial gain, or sometimes it's just ideological belief systems, stuff like that. So again, I'd say, you know, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Have a look at it, see what you think, and do your own research, and go and check out what Annie Logical's been saying as well, and her research into it, and other people that have looked into the situation. And don't throw all the information out about the technology and the other questions just because one person proves to be a shill or an agent or whatever. You know, or they used to be in a cult, therefore you just ignore everything they ever said. No, I don't think it works that way. But the one really good thing that I really agreed with that I wanted to mention that Mark Steele said was hardwire. I've been repeating this for years now. Please turn the Wi-Fi off on your routers. Stop using Wi-Fi. Get yourself an Ethernet cable. Yes, it means it's a bit more messing about because you've got to have a cable running across the living room floor or whatever to your laptop or, you know, something like that. And it means you've got to move it when you move into a different room and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, Wi-Fi gives you a sense of convenience, but it's a convenience that has a detrimental health cost. So why do it? For the sake of, oh, I've got to have a cable plugged in. I've been using a cable in my systems for forever. I've hardly ever used Wi-Fi. I use it very occasionally, or if I have to, if there's some kind of technical problem that means I can't connect via a cable, you know, blah, blah, blah. But given the choice, I will connect with a cable because then you don't have to put up with the Wi-Fi. But with most modern routers now, you have to, by conscious choice, you will have to look at your tech to see how it operates. Most of them, you will have to utilize your computer to access the control page or control panel for the router. And in there, you'll find the default settings, and guaranteed on all modern routers, by default, Wi-Fi will be turned on. And it's left on as a default standard. So unless you, by choice, go and find that control page and turn it off, you know, just plugging a cable into your computer does not turn the Wi-Fi off at the router. You need to turn it off at the router. And if your router gets reset, it will go back to the default setting and your Wi-Fi will get turned on again. So it's something you've got to be conscious of and do for yourself. A lot of the modern tech now that gets pushed out by the suppliers, the ISPs like BT, Virgin, Sky, whatever, they now want people to be solely on Wi-Fi. So they actively encourage you to get routers that are meant to be for Wi-Fi primarily. They might have some cable sockets on the back, but really they don't want you to use the cable sockets. They want you to do it all Wi-Fi. You know, there's a lot of curiosity about that for me, other than the potential nasty elements of a conspiracy that they actually want people to be saturated in Wi-Fi. Like I said, potentially nasty conspiracy elements. You know, I can't see any other technological good reason why they tell people to use Wi-Fi rather than a cable. There is no technologically good reason to do so. It's pure convenience. Wi-Fi is pure convenience. Gives you, if anything, it gives you a lesser service. You will get a crapper connection than you would from a cable. Especially if you get good quality cables and stuff like that, you know, you will get a much better connection. You'll certainly get a lot less, if not none at all, of packet drop and shit like that, which is a common problem with Wi-Fi, and why some people find doing things like live streaming and whatever difficult is because they're trying to do it over fucking Wi-Fi, and bits of your information are getting moved through the air in the wrong direction, so they don't hit the receiver properly. They get lost basically along the way, so you get packet loss, packet drop, and that causes your stream to get blocky or degrade and blah blah blah. So anyway, yeah, that was one definitely good thing that I wanted to repeat. Hardwire. If you've got the option, if you're able to set it up, do it by hardwire, preferably, rather than using Wi-Fi. The only other thing I wanted to mention tonight, and I've rambled for a bit, even though I didn't really have that much specifically to rant about. You know, I'm good at filling up empty air. But this is connected back to some of the stuff that Steve was talking about on Saturday night again. I thought worth furthering or expounding upon that. What was said, that connection to the inner and outer world. I sort of mentioned it a little bit at the start. You know, you want to change the world, begin with yourself. Don't end at yourself. That's not the culmination. You know, you begin with yourself and you work outwards. But you've got to do that, at least start doing that inner work. And it's nothing mystical, it's nothing magical, it's not woo-woo, crazy, hippie, new age shit. It's about introspection and dealing with your own inner demons, your own inner shadow. There's lots of information and help you can find online about that kind of stuff. There is a massive amount of free information available on the internet that will help you work your way through that kind of stuff. And beginning with that process means, I feel anyway, I've found this has been true for myself, and I found it true with other people and in other people, was that doing the inner work helps people be more genuine, truthful, and effective in what they're trying to do with the external world. So that argument, like I was ranting about last week about, you know, only help yourself kind of thing, it doesn't go anywhere other than being a solipsistic black hole. Yeah, it's a narcissistic black hole. But at the same time, it is certainly a truism that if you are struggling to achieve or do certain things within your own life, then you're not likely to be able to help with that kind of problem in the external world. The example I used was, if you struggle climbing the stairs, you wouldn't be very good at helping somebody move furniture. You know, to me, that's just a common sense given. But, you know, you've got to be quite clear about principles and definitions in this internet environment, because people slip and slide all over the place thanks to the weight of the baggage that they're carrying, either in their left or right hand. You know? But that concept of begin with the internal and work outwards from there, you will be much more effective at influencing or helping or affecting the world around you if your own self, your own life, your own inner world is going well or improving, getting better. If you're going downwards, you're more likely to radiate out negativity, which means you pull your locality, your world around you down with you. I've spoken about that in various ways over the years. You encounter somebody who's got a very negative energy, and it just shits all over the party. Everybody else is having a good time, and then in walks Mr. Sadface, and everything just goes down from there. And that's what you radiate, the frequency you radiate affects the world around you. This is why I thought this connects quite well together, talking about the 5G stuff and all this agenda that's going on at the moment. Your frequency affects the world around you. The frequency of the world around you affects you. But that element of the internal and external, the sacred and the profane, it's a dualism of definition that demonstrates the balance, the equilibrium within reality. We're all a bit of both. We've got the inner world and the outer world that we experience. We've got a little bit of sacred and profane within all of us. I could say that the only truly sacred thing that you will ever find or be able to truly define is that which you find within yourself. And guaranteed, whenever you look to the external, you will find profane. You will find the profane. It's not to say that everything either side of that fence is one or the other. It's not. But you look into the external world, if you're looking for the profane, you'll find it. Quite easily, quite readily, because that's the way reality works. It's both at the same time. It's not one or the other. And it works well for yourself as well, to help yourself. And by helping yourself, you're then able to help others. You could be helping others just by helping yourself. And I thought, the way Steve was describing it works well as well. The one other thing to mention, the chosen opposer that wrestles with God. I think I did type it into the chat on Steve's show on Saturday. Talking about that age-old question, the word Israel, Isis Ra'el, or Israel, supposedly means he who wrestles with God, or the one who wrestles with God. And I think I typed it into the chat. What's another word for wrestling with something? You are opposing it. So who are the opposers? The opposers are those who wrestle with the will of God. So if you're trying to forcibly change reality, you are wrestling with the will of God. You are the opposer. You can apply different theological points of view to that. In the Judeo-Christian theological point of view, they'd say it defines you as the Satan. So you are the Satan. We are all the Satan. Anyone who doesn't just supplicate themselves to that particular theological version of God is the opposer. You can pull this apart all over the place when you start really digging into it. But I thought it was worth mentioning in relation to this internal external thing. Often it can feel like the will of God is like a tyrannical dictator. And for many people, I think that is what puts them off the concept of faith and religion and just the very idea of gods and whatever, because they feel that it is possibly this something other outside of themselves that if it wanted to could come along and squish them because it's the Almighty God. And it's trying to help people get past that misconception. As far as I'm concerned, it is a misconception so stitched into the fabric of nearly every society and the religions and institutions and whatever, that it's difficult for many people to get past.
I was going to say, Cookie, fear as well.
Yes,
that's
absolutely.
Yeah.
Fear God. So why should I fear somebody that loved me so much he created all this? That doesn't make any sense to me. Don't fear God.
It's like as a child when you're in the playground and you don't know anybody, you go there for the first day and there's all these strange people and this energy's weird and you're trying to make some kind of sense of it all. Like, find that really, as you go through life, it's that like that learning. And yeah, I'll go off on a tangent in a minute, but yeah, I will shut up. Yeah.
That's all right. Tangents are perfectly fine as long as we can keep weaving them together like yogurt weaving.
Yeah, but it's just that, I mean, I've made a few notes myself just when you were chatting. I mean, I was thinking the toxic plasma, I've always thought it as, that they've sort of created for us, sort of with Wi-Fi and everything else, and the 5G and all the stuff going on, and all the pollutants and all kinds of stuff. And, it's all to, keep us dumbed down, keep us daft, keep us away from that spiritual side of ourselves, and that you say that inner self, and it's toxifies your mind and body and spirit. All of the sort of environment they've sort of created in the last 50, 100 years or whatever, to just slowly ramp it up every decade with something new polluting, or they brought out something different. But as we go through living, we know that lots of things are bad for us now, chemical use and everything else within our everything we do. It's either chemicalized, or it's got some kind of toxicity to it, and it's hard to avoid most things unless like I say, you get clued up. And especially with the basic food stuff, you see people just in their basic stuff, they're programmed into that lifestyle, into that, and then it's hard to people see it, and that that will affect your frequency and your harmony and all the rest of it, and your energy and vibration, and that sort of cutting you off, because again, you've got a fuzzy head, or or whatever. And with the news as well, they want everybody in sort of, like I say, fear and getting angry and upset and everything else these days, especially with what's going on at the moment across not just this country, across Europe. It seems there's a big push to get everybody on a on the edge, and about whatever it is. And this country's mainly, we're seeing it with Brexit and other things, and now with 5G, we've been talking about for a long time. But everything seems to be sort of, and I made this note as well, just the old saying, where attention goes, energy flows. So they always want to distract you into keeping you away from yourself. And Brexit and all the political stuff and all the bullshit, you haven't got time to think, have you? Haven't got time to kind of well, you don't think you have. That's the thing, they make you think you don't think you have. It's just that, again, changing your mindset around.
It's interesting that evolution is taking place, and Cookie, you mentioned that you shouldn't act, but then we're told if we see history repeating, we should do something about it. And Guy Scott put up a video today, about how Mr. Gove wants to ban all wood burning stoves. Well, remember back in the Victorian times, those pea super fogs they used to have in London, they were real, and they were caused by the
coal
smoke,
fires.
the coal fires. Well, now they're banning coal fires if Gove gets his way, but we've got a new microwave pea soup, fog, and it's there all the time. So I mean, we've gone from a physical pea soup to an electronic one. But it's still there. And, you mentioned the French Revolution earlier on. People were calling for that. Well, they're calling for another one. It's just, the situation gets more complex, but the same thing seems to be repeating.
Yeah, it's repeating patterns, isn't it? And I think, like I say, we're going back to a kid being the child born, and you're thrust into the world, and, it's a kind of... you must learn quickly sort of thing,
I know some people hate the phrase or hate the idea or whatever, I think, whatever, people think what they want, but that's why, to me, it is like a global awakening. There is a consciousness across the globe that is realizing it is coming of age, or potentially has the chance to come of age, like a pubescent child getting to the age where it realizes that its parents are not a requirement, in the sense of, like, everything would cease to exist if their parents weren't there to do this, that, or the other for them. They're starting to come into their own sense of being, their own sense of self. And doing so, they're looking for something beyond the parental home. They're looking beyond the horizon to something else, somewhere else. And I think that's happening on a global scale, a little bit naturally, as part of the cycles of us and the energy as it rises up in the population, but also engineered to a degree that they want people to be in this single global system. Yeah. So they want people to say, oh, you know, we don't need the old ways and the old paradigm. We need something new. Let's smash it all down and build it again. Yeah.
Well, what occurred to me that's happened many times over history. The people controlling things have been able to come out, tell a series of lies to the people, and they've gone along with it, and they've had their revolution, or they've gone to war with Germany or whatever. But with those people never had the history written down in a book to go and look at, to compare. I mean, you say learn from history, but nobody's ever really, the people as a group have never really had that opportunity to learn from history the way we are now. So, like, if people began calling the microwave radiation a pea soup, a pea super, resurrecting that idea from the Victorian, because everybody knows a pea soup is a thick bog, and you can't see through it. It's dirty. So a microwave pea super, and they talk about the yellow vests. We say, oh, we don't need another French Revolution. We don't need another Masonic-run French Revolution, because people didn't have those historical examples so clear in the mind. What went wrong last time? Yeah, they just fell into each lie as it was told them and went along with it.
Yeah, I thought when you said about getting people involved in shit through weaving a web of lies, I thought it was worth putting this quote up again. The main bit on it that really sort of says the point is this is about getting the population to agree to a war or whatever, to something that normally they would never agree to. All you have to do is tell them they're being attacked and denounce the pacifists for lack of patriotism and exposing the country to danger. It works the same in every country.
That's probably almost a historical first that somebody actually wrote that down.
Yeah.
And now we've got it to look at. Yeah. That's the sort of thing I'm talking about. Yeah. I mean, the Germans who were listening to all that propaganda, they didn't have a book with that kind of quote from somebody else, I don't think. Yeah.
Well, those who operate the system wouldn't have stepped forward and say, hey, population, this is how we do things to you. They're not going to give away the way the mechanism works.
But that's the information age now we're in, isn't it, as well? We've got the spread of information. We've got everything sort of easily, if you go and look for quotes or look for whatever, and you can go and, find whatever you want now. And that's what's, that's a good thing. You can go and find information, whether you fall into traps, into, all the rest of it. And, it's up to you to make that decision. That's, that's you to just use your own discernment, whether you think someone's bullshitting you or not. And that's something that I think, maybe more people have that sort of radar tuned up a bit better now. They can see through the bullshit. They can see someone, and like you say, Cookie, you shouldn't throw the baby out with the bathwater, in a sense. It's just information. And yeah, there are people they do have agendas. I think there could be an agenda behind this Mark Steele thing. There could well be. Someone put in the chat, can't remember who it was. It could be deliberate. So it could, what did I write down here? Good for to establish like a weak case, so they could establish new case law,
a trial case.
Yeah, like a trial case thing. So they can establish. So it's a weak case, in other words. So they can sort of that was a good comment. Now I can't remember who put that in there, but thank you for that. Yeah,
that's what Annie was warning him about. Yeah, if he goes to court with the information he's got on his videos, they're going to throw it out. They're going to get an expert in and tell him.
And then it establishes a case law, like say an example, and then here we go. Other people are going to do it like they did with the Freeman thing. They all got ready and prepared because they saw a few people go in and try these type of techniques in the courtroom and things of this nature, and suddenly they moved the goalposts, as you say. They did that exactly. So remember, they own the system. So if you're attacking with the system, using the system against the system, it's not gonna work. They're always going to move it around, shift it around, and do you in the end, and throw you in jail or whatever, if that's what it takes, to shut you up or to get you to, see the system as this is what it is, and they'll use you as an example, as this is what happens to you when you come up against the system and things of this nature, or break the law or whatever. And that recent case with David Noakes, who's in jail at the moment, isn't he, the one who was locked up? But that's another thing. But yeah, But it's interesting how, you know, that could be how they get these type of things in. And like I say, people like Analogical and others have sussed this out, saw this, looked into it, and thought, hey, there's big red flags here. But as you mentioned, it's business for some people, in the sense of that's how they do their thing online. They make money and they see opportunities to, you know, 5G is a big subject. You know, it's a big one, and he has come to the fore. But it is a bit dodgy when you look into the background of it all. You know.
I mean, to me anyway, when you look at the situation, look at some of the information, the fact that it is such a big topic that has come up fairly rapidly. I know it's been a few years, 2 maybe, and it's accelerating towards 2020 because, you know, this is their benchmark anyway. I know they might not necessarily succeed with a lot of the rollout plans that they want to do all over, but they're going to get a good portion of it done by about 2020.
Well, we mentioned it a year ago, ages ago on the chat, that the story was rolling out what cities they were going to hit 5G with this year in March of this year. So it's only a few months away. They're going to be switching it on, and then more cities to roll out as we roll on in the year and next year.
Yeah.
So it's happening.
That fact that it is, you know, this is not a disputed thing to do with the technology or anything like that. Just the fact that it has sort of banged into the consciousness, appeared in the media sphere, even though I know the mainstream don't sort of talk about it a lot, and certainly not in the ways we do, but it's there as a topic. It's just like, boom, yeah, now we're going to 5G, everyone, way! And the very fact that it's been put there like that, and it's been, you know, maybe not stated directly a lot, but the information is there if people go to look for it. You know, you can find the statement saying that, yeah, we want this done by 2020.
Yeah.
You know, this links into the Agenda 21 UN stuff as well, and blah, blah, blah. They might not necessarily state that directly in public very often, but the information is there that that's the agenda, yeah? So to me, it should stand out for people. Like, hang on a minute, this has sort of like come out of nowhere. And these politicians are saying, yeah, we're going ahead. And they're like banging the drum and marching at full pace straight ahead. And meanwhile, everybody else is like, what's that? What technology? What? When's that starting? Unless you're, you know, if you're a bit of a tech head and you follow that kind of news a lot, this has sort of just been like presented to the public. And before the public has even really said much of anything about it, they're like, oh yeah, and it's going to be done by this date, which is like within a few years.
Yeah.
And it's sort of, you consider the sheer logistics, the amount of stuff that's got to happen before this all gets rolled out. But your government seems so intense on getting this done within that time frame. That should make you take a step back and go, oh, why is this so like massively important that it's like this? This isn't like them saying, you know, oh, hey folks, we're going to set up a new telephone system in the coming decade, or over the next decade, we're going to work on rolling out this new telecom system that's going to be somewhat different to what you're used to. You know, there'd be a somewhat slow, methodical process to that to make it happen. But this is like, no, this is like full speed. You're not allowed to even bring up a question. They've already moved beyond you. You know, they've already walked past you as you're raising your hand.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that just from the point of view of like, oh, you're just an old fart that don't keep up. You're old. You're not in with the in crowd. You're not up on the new technology kind of shit. No, bollocks. Sorry, fuck off, bollocks. I don't like this particular technology. That doesn't mean I dislike all technology. I'm not a Luddite, you know, but it gets back into that kind of absolutist black and white thinking shit. You know, if you speak out against 5G, that means you're a Luddite that wants to live in a cave. You know, that's a dumb fucking fallacious argumentation again. But my point being is that I would hope that for many people, just the fact that this has just like been dumped on the scene and pushed straight away, full force ahead, that should make you question why. Just that alone is like, why is my government suddenly so insistent that this has to happen? And I know for a lot of people that might go with that question and look into some information, and they'll be presented with things like Internet of Things, driverless cars, and we need to do this to keep up with the rest of the world. That kind of argumentation from the system to justify why it's a necessity. But when you see those links back to what this technology is capable of doing and how it links into agendas that come from not only your own government, but from world structures like the UN, that should hopefully make you think a bit more. Should bring up more questions for you, and that then will lead you into further research and whatever. But it just gets me that like, people are sort of like, it's not even like a question of if somebody comes to your house. I'm using a simplistic analogy. Somebody comes to your house and says, "Hey, look, I've got this new jigabob. It's fantastic. Do you like it? Look, it can do this. Do you want it? You want it now, don't you? It's the greatest thing ever. Everybody's having one. The guy next door's already got 10. You got to have one. You got to have one." Wouldn't you be sat there going, "What is it, mate? What does it do? How does it work? Am I supposed to wear a special suit while I hold it because it looks like it might, be a bit dangerous?" Nobody's doing that. They're all just like, "Oh yeah, some guy's brought me some new thing that goes bzzz."
Yeah.
I really do question that unthinking. It's not even acceptance. It's like apathy. I don't know how to describe it. It is a kind of emanation of apathy that is sort of like, something's just appeared in my locality, or I don't know what it is. I don't care. It could be bad, it could be good, but I just don't care.
Oh man, I've seen Spanish adverts where they're literally treating Alexa like it's another member of the family. I mean, they might be advertising pizza, but they'll ask bloody Alexa something about pizzas. Yeah, it's just there, in the advert. What the fuck? It must be placement, but
yeah, they're normalizing all that technology now, so that's how it will be going forward. With people, they won't retain information. Just the little device will keep telling them the stuff that they keep forgetting.
I have a strange suggestion, just as an idea, a silly idea, but it might. Well, why don't they get Alexas for dogs and cats? Do you remember? It was a few years ago, but there was this little sort of craze, fad, trend, whatever. People would get the special electronic collars that would have cameras on them and stuff like that, so you could get your smartphone and you'd be able to tune into your dog while you're at work. You could go check what's your dog doing at home at the moment. You could see through this camera, or you could get the pictures from the camera onto your phone and stuff like that. At the same time, there was some technology that came out several years ago, I think it was from Japan or something like that, that claimed that they had figured out enough of the vocabulary of dogs and cats that they could give them a collar that had a little speech box on it that would interpret what the animal is saying, and it would give you a human word instead. So it'd say like hungry or thirsty or whatever. Why aren't they giving animals Alexas? Why isn't there an Alexa collar so your dog can ask Alexa to do things? Like I say, I know it's a bit of a crazy idea, but it just occurred to me. It's like, are they just missing a marketing ploy here, or is there something else? Are we the only ones that are dumb enough to listen to this thing and interact with it as if it's another living being? An animal would look at it and go, "What the fuck's that?"
That might be it. I mean, unless that machine is going to keep kicking out little chocolate drops, they can ignore it.
Yeah. Alexa, Scooby snack. Alexa, Scooby snack. Yeah, man, but it started a whole new trend. People will be buying these stupid devices just for their pets.
And there's a Black Mirror episode coming true, isn't
it? Yeah.
Seems, yes.
I know maybe that is something that is more related to what you could call ageism. As in, I know we can look at things, and because we've got life experience of the world without the internet, we have a different perspective on a lot of the stuff to do with this modern technology, especially internet technology in particular. And you know, sometimes it is sort of like that kind of element of it. You know, you look at this technology and it just, well, for me it does anyway. I look at this kind of stuff and I think, why is it that people just aren't registering this as what it is, or what I feel it is anyway? You know, I'm quite happy to say it could just be my bias, whatever, blah, blah, blah. But why is it that people just sort of accept it in the same way as running water coming out of a tap?
Because when we was 20, the word zeitgeist was supposed to represent something that we couldn't quite put our finger on, but we knew it was there.
The spirit of the age.
There was a thing called the zeitgeist. Now everybody's plugged into it.
Yeah, that's what it means. In a loose translation, the spirit of the age, or the energy of the age.
Well, the good thing about the zeitgeist was that anybody can put into it. Anybody can input to the zeitgeist. Only the best stuff gets stayed there. So all the gurus and all the hippies across the planet, they're all plugged into the zeitgeist, sort of showing others the way. And the modern one works the same way. Yeah? But people don't sort of have to wonder about it. They can just turn it on.
Externalize it.
I mean,
like, to me, comes back to the people don't want to do the inner work. People don't want to introspect. They don't want to look at themselves because their inner self scares them, or has hidden darkness or some shit that they don't want to deal with.
Collective mind as well. Like I say, you know, we have to search for it. Yeah, it was a concept. It wasn't a living reality that you can just plug into the zeitgeist. Great. Yeah, it's everything. It's everything on the zeitgeist. Everything is there. Everything is available. You know, it's everything we thought it was, but you know, real.
It has also given us the ability to do this, and in a way, you're sharing that zeitgeist by, you know, having these conversations, looking at this kind of content, and doing this kind of stuff in an online environment.
But also, maybe perhaps I put it this way: it's God as well. You know? I mean, you know, we would have taken the concept of zeitgeist and God and spirituality in general and sort of mixed them together to create our own philosophy on life. They've taken one aspect, the collective mind, and they said, "Oh, it's over here. It's on the internet," and by that way, they're taking the other ideas that go with it. Yeah. So the internet has become God. It's become the zeitgeist. It's become everything.
And that's where everybody goes.
And that's what they've taken over control of. Yeah. Free thought, in a sense.
Yeah. To mold the actions of the minds that they have appropriated.
Yeah.
I'm going to try using the participants function. I'm not sure if that's right. Look, I'll try. I'll just scroll up. Hopefully, that'll. Yeah, it's limited my chat box now because it's been more than an hour. But I'll say hello to people. I've noticed there were some names of people I hadn't mentioned earlier because they weren't in the chat earlier, but they're there now. So say a quick hello to Gas Mask. Hello, mate. And Eman Pudama. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that properly. Eman, hello. Eman. And Cherish Rosin, hello. Ron Malcolm. And S.A. Hello, S.A. Scroll Kendo. Hello, mate. Kendo. You all right? I'm scrolling down. Mascara Snake. Hello. I think that was everybody. Helicopter Pad, hello. And Run Malcolm, hello. Yeah, when I clicked on participant, it was only listing about like 7. I thought, no, I'm sure I've seen more people than that in the chat. Committed Escaper, hello, right.
The chat's been flowing a lot. I'm keeping half an eye on it before.
I will, like I always do, I always read through it afterwards because I can't keep up with it while we're broadcasting. I can't anyway. I struggle with that kind of shit. But I do always read through it.
I've seen at least 20 people posting in 20 different people.
And Krishna, hello. And Steve Owens. Stephen Owens, get me words out. Use me words. And sui generis, hello. Yeah, we are all sui generis. Oh,
Oh,
Gary,
he's gone. Gary's dropped. Well, he's had to go.
I suppose it is probably about time, but it seemed a bit abrupt. I didn't know if he'd just lost connection, but we'll find out if he gets back in again.
He might do, but normally he's gone by now, I think, unless it's open.
Yeah, it is about that time. That's what I thought. I'd say hello. So thank you to everyone that's joined in the chat room. Thank you to everyone that's given us your attention for an hour and 40 minutes or so. I know not everyone types in the chat room, but I know there's other people listening, just watching, whatever. That's cool. Hello to everybody. I'm going to wind it up at that. I did send some invites out. I did get a message back from Jeff. He said he'd try and get online if he's back early enough, because I know his channel's been a bit smashed up again. His Supreme Lord Commander channel is still there, but I think his other channels have been restricted again. And I did send some other invites out, but it was just the three of us again this week, but that's cool.
Yeah, cheers, Cookie. Good as always. Thank you for doing that. Good stuff.
I'll try and get back into contact with some of the other guys as well at some point. So I'm distracting myself, thinking about checking up on messages and whatever. But anyway, yes, thanks a lot for tuning in, folks. Check Raconteurs News tomorrow night. They'll be back again at 7 p.m. GMT. And we'll be back on the Reality Chat channel on Wednesday night at 8 p.m. GMT. I keep saying GMT, just
yeah.
There's people in other countries or whatever. And Steve will be on Saturday. And there is lots of other shows on that you can tune into. There's lots of other people doing regular broadcasts. I don't know all of them because there's loads. But keep your eyes open. I'm sure you'll find something that's worth your time. Yeah, I think that's it. I've clicked on everything. So thanks again, folks. I'm going to click the button.
Cheers.
Take it easy. We'll rant at you again soon. Cut cheese.